AB Promotions.
That's right. A B. We back at it. Hopefully my mic level is better because we about to go in another history lesson. Part 3. Okay, it's no myth. Based in facts. All right. It's no myth. Part 3. About to get into it. Okay. We're gonna get on the Hebrews to Negroes network where Brother Akwete Ama is telling you about who the people are. Feel me? Let's go. We back at it. We back at it. We about to get into this right quick. I don't think I'm gonna have to break into this too many times. It's gonna be self-explanatory. Y'all already know my style. I'm about to ride out. All right. So if you want, lean your seat back with the one arm on the steering wheel, you know what I mean? Y'all can do that. We about to ride out for a little bit, okay? Let's go.
AB Promotions.
Like I said before, don't be mad at me. Be mad at the information. Yeah, we about to go in. We ride out. You know me. Alright? Hey. Beep. Yeah, don't get it twisted. We going in there. Alright? Yo. Don't be mad at me. This ain't my information. Like I said before, I'm just a mess. Yeah, I hope y'all bob your head to this right quick. You know what I mean? Okay. That's right. I'll do it. Ride out before we get into the meat and potatoes and everything. Okay. Boy. The funny thing is that y'all think we need y'all validation. We don't. We validate ourselves. Okay. That's right. Yo, shout out to everybody at the Reaction channel. You know what I mean? Shout out to my brother Rob. Black Revelations. That's right. I said on that channel. In order to validate their books, they had to put real people in it. You see? So we ain't worried about nothing. You're not an authority on nothing. Okay. Yeah. We about to go in. You know how I do. I'm gonna ride out. I feel good. Okay. I'm celebrating. That's right. Two steps. Okay. Yeah. About to go in, y'all. Let Brother Quincy do the talk. I'll stop it when I need to. Okay? That's right. One. Let's go.
Because basically, in this discussion today that we're going to have with both rabbis, it's important that we really cover the grounds on the Hebrew Israelites in Africa, because there's way more evidence of Hebrew Israelites in Africa other than the Igbos, the Lembas, and the Ethiopian Jews. And with that being said, at least that basically opens up a huge window in regards to the slave trades that happened all the way from Senegal, Gambia, all the way around Liberia, Sierra Leone, to Akan land, the Ga, Ewe, and even to the Yorubas and the Igbos, and even if you go further into East Africa with the Bantus people. But Basil, you can go ahead and start with the discussion in regards to are the Igbos the only Hebrews that people are talking about in West Africa?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ron, Madam Tina, Rabbi Rosenberg. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share about the ancient Hebrews, as we now call them. 2 weeks ago, a claim was made by my elder brother, Remy, about the Igbos being one of the five ancient communities in the world. And though I disagree with that statement, I'm not arguing with my brother Remy. I just wanted to make it clear that that claim is not accurate. There are more Hebrews on the continent of Africa than the five that he listed 2 weeks ago.
All right. Rosenberg, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'd love to just chime in for a second, just so we can, this conversation should hopefully be all about clarity. Is I don't necessarily represent the viewpoints of Remy Lona, but
Real quick, so Brother Quetzi is basically saying that we call ourselves Hebrew people. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Is that we are a people. That's all. We are the original people. All right. So, Harry Rosenberg, also a rabbi, is going to speak right now. I'll stop it when I need to. Okay.
but I would like to discuss what he's mentioning, what he's referring to. And he mentioned, he said 5 select groups. I could already list, much more than that of different groups around the world who are claiming or have an identity from being from the people of Israel. And when someone lists Mizrahi, Sephardi, and Ashkenazi as 3 different groups, that wouldn't be correct necessarily, because they would be considered one group based on the adoption of the laws that it's Mizrahi, Ashkenazi. It would be Yemenite.
Also, real quick, if you're watching this, you need to get religion out of your head. We're not talking about religion. We're talking about historical facts right now. You know what I mean? Who's who and what's what from a historical basis, right? Using the Bible as a reference point, if I could use that term, right? but we're gonna keep it rocking. All right.
Moroccan, Iranian, Iraqi. There was Syrian. These were communities all throughout the region for the last 2,000 years who've been aligned with the same exact version, basically, of the Torah and its understanding. And so, I'm open to having a discussion now of where else in Africa we're finding these remnants, and is it, from the people who are saying it, or is it from the scholars and educators? And I'd like to just turn the ball back to Rabbi for a second, who are on the line with, who I appreciate the time as well. So we're discussing these different groups and communities. So the title Rabbi is an interesting title. So I want to discuss just for a second the rabbi that we're on the phone with, where his teachings of the Torah are coming from, where his rabbihood is based. And I'd just like to we have a clear idea of where the line's getting drawn between certain customs and traditions from 2,000 years to place communities in their proper.
Real quick again. So Mr. Rosenberg is asking Brother Akweti his credentials as far as being a rabbi. Brother Akweti is going to answer that question, but also what I would, my little 2 cents about it is that whether or not wherever he tells you he gets his certification from, are you going to be accepted, right? Like, is it going to be acceptable to you? So that's why I like the way Brother Akweti answered this question. You know what I mean? Check it out, though, all right?
So does that question make sense that I'd like to discuss with the rabbi for a second, or should I be more clear?
Oh, Basil?
It makes sense. Rabbi Basil?
Yes, thank you for the question. But I would like to answer that question offline or at another time. I would want us to stick to the topic, and we can clarify.
Okay, sure. We could
that
stick
later.
to the topic if you don't want to discuss it. I was just suggesting that okay, we'll get to that later. I'll circle back why I think that's a relevant question. So from my perspective, and I follow. I'm on Instagram. I look at the feed page for the Hebrews. I don't know. I don't feel comfortable. The word Negro. I could say Hebrews to Negro. I know there's a stigma with saying the N word. I try to avoid it. But I follow them on Instagram, and I see that they'll say certain things like, okay, we're focusing on the Igbo, or focusing on the Pashtun, or certain areas where there's 25, 40 million, to make it seem like it's almost like a Jewish conspiracy that we're picking and choosing who's on board for this, and who we think should be in or should not be in. And from my perspective, that's not accurate. What's really happening, and I've met the people on the ground, is when Israel became a state in the 1940s, a political state, there was researchers and academics and groups of rabbis independent from the government, who were wonderful, beautiful people, who actually started doing research around the world of the groups who are identifying from the people of Israel. And they wrote academic bodies and courseworks and papers about it, and there's been, studies, and Jewish people are flying around the world to meet these people. And they're basing this work on the groups around the world who are claiming or have this identity.
Real quick. So I'll be remiss not to point this out, but Mr. Rosenberg was saying that he had a problem saying the word Negro. It's almost akin to him saying the N-word, and I'm not sure why that is because Negro just denotes somebody being black, right? I guess in some aspects it could be looked as a derogatory, but it makes me think that Negro is not the only word that was probably used in his household or something. I don't know. That maybe I'm looking into it more than it is, but I don't understand what the problem with using the word Negro is. Negro just denotes black. Okay, but we're gonna keep it moving.
And so I would think it would be hard to argue that almost any group would rival in size and in what we're seeing in the Igbo group of their return to their indigenous claim to be from the ancient people of Israel and to return to that identity and re-embrace the Torah lifestyle. I'm not seeing anywhere in the African area something as large as that who are creating, Facebook groups and they're writing books and there's texts and they're reaching out to other communities around the world and they're developing. That for me, that's a fascinating phenomenon. So that doesn't mean if there's another group who would do the same as the Igbo and come out openly as a nation, as a people, that would also be a fantastic thing for the world, probably, that could be a great contribution. So when I've heard about there's groups in Ghana that are identified as Hebrew Israelites, and they've done research in the customs and traditions, but that would be small groups of people doing research on behalf of the many. So what we're looking for, what we think should have happen, if this is something on the many, maybe they've been persecuted and forgot who they are, but where are we holding as far as a nationhood identity of these communities on the western coast of Africa outside of the Igbo? That's part of my question for now. If that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you for your question. If you can give me a few extra time to answer this. A misconception that people hold of the ancient Israelites is that we are a lost tribe. The truth is, we are not lost at all. The reason we seem lost to the world is because the world is unaware of our true name. We are actually identified by the wrong name. When we think about the ancient Israelites, Jews is what comes into the minds of most people. But the word Jew does not appear anywhere in the Bible's original text. Although the name Jew is commonly used to identify the Israelites, the name does not exist in the original text of the Bible. You will see Yehudi, Judahite, or maybe Judean. If you should travel back in time, let's get it straight, and you met the ancient Israelites and you call them Jews, they will stare at you blankly because that is not their designation. Therefore, if we use the name Jew in our search for the tribes of Israel, we're going to come up empty. And we have proof of that. Since this was not our true designation and we did not call ourselves such, then a search will end up with nothing. When you do and find us, however, by our true name, you will find many of us still with the original ancient tongue that the text of the Torah was written in. Customs and traditions still preserved intact and carrying on exactly as you read in the Torah. The reason why a small bunch of Europeans managed to take over the second biggest continent and dominated it was because of the system of divide and rule. All they had to do with divide and rule was pit Africans against each other. They succeeded tremendously because of the lack of history that existed amongst the local people. This was exploited and further enhanced in the Bond of 1884 when they met in Berlin, Germany.
Real quick, so I'm going to elaborate when Brother Akweti says, based of the lack of history from among the local people, there are hierarchies in African culture, and unfortunately, the lower classes are meant to be almost as nothing, for lack of a better words, so they may be at a lower social class and don't know everything about themselves, if that makes sense. Anyway, I'm gonna let him explain it. He does it way better than I can, right? So we're gonna keep it moving.
To define their trade zones and divided Africa amongst themselves. The result is the boundaries you have now, whereas before there were no boundaries and the people could move freely about on the continent and be at home.
This all changed after 1884. Africa was broken into countries and new identities far removed from what was before. It is wise, therefore, for anyone who writes and talks about the Hebrews in Africa to start the search by first removing these artificial boundaries. Remove these boundaries, remove these imaginary lines brought about by the Berlin Conference, or what was called the Scramble for Africa. And you.
Great point. Yeah, because in order for anybody to find out who the people are over there, we're talking about modern states right now. So if you go to West Africa, you're going to see the state of Ghana, the state of Nigeria, the state of Togo, the state of Ivory Coast. You know what I mean? Like, those are artificial because I even said it in Reacts before. Like, the Khan people, they span from Ivory Coast all the way almost into Nigeria. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, these lines that were drawn just messes everything up, you know, but we're going to keep it moving.
End up with a place called Evenigba, meaning Hebrew land. I'll repeat that. Remove the boundaries that you see in Africa right now. Remove the imaginary lines. And what you have in West Africa is a place that was once called Evenigba, which translates into English as Hebrew land. And it was made up of various Hebrew tribes stretching across 4 countries currently: Ghana, Togo, Benin, Nigeria. These are the groups that make up, right now in West Africa, what we call the Hebrews. Evenigba, as I mentioned, translates into English as Hebrew land. This is the true name of the people of the book. Eve, not Ivre, not Igbo, not Jews. Eve is what became Hebraicus in Latin and then was translated into English as Hebrew. So if you start off looking for Hebrews, you're going to miss us. If you start off looking for Jews, you miss us. If you start off looking for Igbos, you just find a group of people in what is now Nigeria. But this strip of land, that's called Hebrew land, Evenigba, which was to be named later as the Slave Coast during the transatlantic slave trade, was ruled by the Aja people, who are of the tribe of Judah, with their seat of power being Old Oyo, before the advent of the Europeans. So before we talk about the Igbo, before we make any claim about Africa, we have to remove the boundaries, and then we can start talking from them. Otherwise, you're just going to do hit and miss. If you don't know the ancient name of the people, there's no way we can find them.
Okay, thank you so much for the answer. Just to make some comments on what you've just said, and we can start and move forward. You opened up by speaking by saying,
real quick again, so Harry Rosenberg is about to go in, and he's going to be speaking as if he's an authority, right? Rabbi just means teacher, and y'all could check that out for yourselves, right? You know, basically, you know, I mean, in layman's term, that's all that means, right? Somebody who's learned on the culture and stuff. So, but he's gonna be talking to Brother Akweti as if he's the authority, and I want you guys to peep that interchange, right? So we're gonna keep it rocking, all right?
saying there was a stigma in the world today with the term lost tribes. That and you know, just to explain the initial inception of the term when it was used was during the First Temple period, when there was a split in the kingdom, when the Assyrian army exiled the northern 10 tribes who fled into the north and also fled towards the east. I'm sure they obviously exiles ended up in Africa at one point.
AB Promotions.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I had to step away real quick. It might be some part of the video that was missing in translation, but we probably not that far off. So I'm gonna keep it going. We're gonna continue with this, okay? I want you guys to check out how Harry Rosenberg is trying to assert himself as an authority on Hebrew issues or Hebrew people. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, let's go.
As well. When that had happened, they became lost from the perspective of the Judean kingdom because they were separated from the Judean kingdom. And then as the Judean kingdom went into exile and they went to Babylon, then they came back to Israel, and there was actually sages and scholars in the time of Ezra and Nehemiah in Israel writing down code of law and redacting law. They were referring to these missing people still as the lost tribes. So when, let's say, a certain group will come back from Africa, if they're from the tribes of Judah, they necessarily wouldn't be in the category of what the Jewish people would use the term lost tribes for. Because the lost tribes is really pinned to the 10 tribes. In Hebrew called the Aseret HaShvatim, the 10 tribes. So that's just one thing. And then you said the word Jew doesn't exist in the Bible. Say the word Yehudi, which means of Judah or Judahite, does exist in the Bible. Well, I get that. That makes a lot of sense. The word Jew, we can look where it's derived from. It comes from the term Jude, which from Germany, which is based on Yahud, which is based on someone from Judah, Yehuda or Yehudi. And so that word became about from a certain part of the European exile. But if you went to a Yemenite, who you call today a Yemenite Jew, they would never have heard of the word Jew 200, 300 years ago. But it doesn't mean they still weren't who they say they are. And just today, because they identify, it may not be the best term.
So real quick, Harry Rosenberg just proved Brother Akweti's point. You know what I mean? Like, they weren't calling themselves Jews. That's a relatively new term, you know what I'm saying, for the original people. But we're going to keep it moving. All right? All right, let's go.
So identify, or, to identify them. So, yeah, I think you made a good point. The word Jew, which is a modern word, doesn't exist in the Bible because it came about in the exile. It was an exile term. So it's just the point I wanted to make over there. And then, excuse me, and then you said, you started talking about the tribes in Africa, which I think is great, and you start speaking about the boundaries and dissolving British borders. I think that's a great idea to do. Just from my understanding that the Igbo, when I speak to them, when I learn from them, they would tell me that their culture, which is a very rich culture, I've read books about it, is not found or similar to the other cultures of the other Bantu-speaking tribes. When they really analyze and look at it, they said there's 99% difference in the cultures of these tribes. So, yeah, I can understand that the white man maybe pitted Africans against other Africans, even though I do know that there were Africans selling other Africans to white slave owners. Maybe they were divisive and caused those fights to happen. I don't know. And also in the time of Egypt, there were Africans enslaving Africans, which predates the European white man entry. So I don't think that African against African violence is exclusive to the white man's intervention. But you speak about these lines, and if you dissolve...
Did y'all peep that? African on African crime? Yo, these people, man, they are funny as hell, man. Wow. Okay. All right. It went from African on African crime to black on black crime, right? That's what it went to. And you got a problem saying the word Negro? The fuck out of here, man. These niggas is clowns. Well, they're not even that. So let's keep it moving.
Then you're just going to have this land called Hebrew land, which also Igbo, I was told, means Hebrew, Hebrew. The question is, again, it's going to go back to my original point. So you, as a detective or an investigator, are going to come up with a theory based on the names of the regions and certain things that you're laying out, which may make a lot of sense on paper. You're suggesting that large groups of people are from the house of Israel. What I'm saying, are those large groups of people actually doing anything about preserving what they've heard from their parents, if they are from the house of Israel, making movements, have an identity? I mentioned to you, Rabbi, that...
Is it me, or it sounds like Rosenberg is challenging Akweti's like, like his being authentic. You know what I mean? Like it really sounds like he's being challenged. Like, are you who you say you are? You know what I mean? This, that, third. Are you this? Are you that? Like, bro, my God, chill out. Give him a chance to speak.
There was another community in Ghana that I had a relationship with who said they're from the people of Israel, and you mentioned to me that yes, indeed, but they were from a different tribe. They weren't from your clan or your tribe. So I'm wondering, what's stopping this unity? Like what I see with the Igbo, what's stopping the books being written in the Facebook groups and this amazing unity? What's the objectives in the way that it's right now just not a one-man show saying it's you, but it's not a scaled, large operation. It's more of an idea or a thought based on people. So, and you said if you strip their culture raw, you'll see they're speaking Paleo-Hebrew. I get all of that you think that there's all these signs. But the question is, what about the identity?
Don't miss that right there, what Harry just said. He said he understands that the people in that area are speaking Paleo-Hebrew, meaning the original language. They have the original language, and they speak it. My father's language is one of the original language. You know what I mean? I can speak it a little bit, right? So these things are important. You can't miss these little tidbits when they say it. But we're gonna keep it moving.
Is that going to come and shine into the world?
That's a very good question, and I'll start with identity. See, the problem with, let me not say the problem, but being something is a cultural identity. There is no need to broadcast that to the world if you're comfortable with who you are. Like I said, these customs that we keep that are from the Torah are not religious customs. They are our culture. We do them instinctively without thinking about them. So coming on Facebook to broadcast that I am Hebrew is something that we don't do.
Has nothing to do with religion. Has everything to do with the culture and who the people are. That's it.
It is our culture. Nobody in America comes and broadcasts, hey, I'm American. No, that's your culture. We've known this growing up.
Well,
so we don't need to have Facebook pages broadcasting this. That's the difference. We're not trying to show the world that, hey, this is who we are. No, this is our culture. If the world cares to know, they come to us and we tell them this is who we are. And we prove it by our cultures, we prove it by our customs, our traditions, our history, and then the language. So it's not, I know you're trying to find the Hebrews. That's why you want them to be on Facebook, and that is okay. But to ask what we are doing to broadcast this or showcase this is nothing that I think is a necessity, because we're not trying to prove anything to anybody. Yes, we're trying to reach out to our families across the Atlantic where the slaves were taken from Evenigba to the rest of the world. We're trying to reach out to them, but it's not to broadcast who we are, because we don't have identity crisis.
Right. Thank you, Rabbi, for the nice response. So I want to ask a furthermore deeper question. You're saying that your Hebrew identity is not, it's a culture, it's ingrained in you. It's not something you need to showcase, but it's what you guys do. But I would argue and say that the Torah is not necessarily just a culture thing. There's a lot of commandments in there that it requires us to do still today in the exile. So where is those texts listing the commandments? Where are the books of the prophecies and the scriptures and how to observe Sabbath and how to take the species together on the holidays, Sukkot, and bind them together? What species are they? So this is it. The Torah, yes, a lot of it is culture, but a lot of it is also just actual laws on humanity. So it's really nice for you to say that you don't need the Facebook groups and this is who we are, and we're reaching out to our brothers in the exile. But who's we? I understand you are, but I'm still lacking what we're talking about as far as an identity that is not, your specific sub-tribe or your clan in Africa, but that you are saying we're the people of Israel who are fulfilling prophecies that we have preserved for thousands of years, and this is what we have to be doing. And then this goes back to my original question to you: would you call yourself rabbi? From where does that Torah wisdom come from? That school of thought? How did it get into your hands? And I would want to.
Again, real quick, he's trying to press him on. He's trying to press Brother Akweti on where he gets his being authentic rabbi right from. He answered that question in the beginning. He's like, "Look, man, let's just stick to the topic or whatever. We could talk about that offline." And like I said before, regardless, let's say he told them, right, and it wasn't from someone that he knew to be to him. I'm talking about Rosenberg, to him as being official. You know what I mean? It wouldn't matter because he wouldn't accept that, and that's what usually happens when you're talking about history, right? Your history is looked at in a Eurocentric view. You know what I'm saying? So, what does it matter where Brother Akweti got his certifications from? You know what I mean? If he told you, you probably wouldn't accept it anyway, right? So, we're gonna keep it moving.
I want to know, did it date back to the Gaonic period of the time of the schools of Torah in Babylon and et cetera, where the Ashkenazi and Sephardi Jews also have their Torah teachings from? So it goes back to a deeper question of, where's the Torah in the whole entire picture? Has the Torah been forgotten and you're a remnant community just practicing customs and traditions? And if so, where are you going to get the Torah back from? Or do you have Torahs and scriptures? This is part of the whole question as well.
May I ask a question?
Okay.
May I ask a question really quick,
yes,
just for my own clarity? So, Rabbi Rosenberg, I think I'm not clear when you mention different groups on social media. Are you referring to like different camps that are proclaiming that they're Israelite, or different organizations? Like when you mention Facebook groups, are you speaking about specific groups, or are you talking about in totality?
Well, I'll list like a few offhand. So right now there's groups where I see Igbo, sharing Torah and discussing national identity and building up under the foundations of Torah. I see specific Igbo groups where they're relating and speaking to other groups around the world who have an identity to being for the people of Israel. I'm seeing that with the Pashtun in Afghanistan as well, where they're making Facebook groups called, From the House of Israel, and they're reaching out to other groups. And it's happening in India and Japan, and with the descendants of the Inquisition in Portugal and South America. There's kind of this, like, what part of my work is doing is seeing who's saying that we're in, who's saying that they are from the House of Israel, not who do we think would be because of certain geographical names of maps and names that they're, specific anthropological identities beyond that of who's actually, as a nation, identifying as from the House of Israel. That's really my main question. And all this evidence about Africans all throughout Africa, of Hebrews all throughout Africa, is exciting to me. That sounds great. Let's weed them out. Let's find them out.
Back at it. Had to step away real quick. We're going to continue with the program.
So if we're not there now, if that's not where we are now, what would be the next steps to get there? To see it. Will these people adopt the Torah? Will they return to the Torah? Or do they have a Torah? Do they not have a Torah, etc.?
Okay, Rabbi, when you say groups, that's the problem. We don't have groups. We belong to tribes. That is
that's what
the Torah tells us.
I understand how tribal... I understand that.
Correct. So when you say group, I'm looking at Facebook groups. We don't do groups.
Okay,
we do tribes.
Right. Well, for example, in Afghanistan, they have 25 million, the Pashtun, who identify as being from the 10 northern tribes of Israel. Amongst the Pashtun,
I want y'all to notice something about Rosenberg. When he speaks from a perspective from Europe or the so-called Middle East. You know what I'm saying? He can't. When it comes to Africa, they don't know nothing about it, right? So this stuff is like fascinating to them, right? This is new to them. But we the oldest people. We're the oldest people. Like, it's over. It's over. Like, I'm not saying you can't practice whatever religion they practice in religion all the time. Everybody practicing religion all the time. But we're not talking about religion. We're talking about peoples and history. And you trying to challenge somebody who's actually your father, for lack of better words, right? I'm your damn father. Anyway, we're gonna keep it moving.
they have different subclans and sub-tribes that only intermarry with each other, and they live in different regions, and they've evolved into their own unique customs and traditions. Something that happens amongst all 25 million of them is they call themselves Bani Israel, the children of Israel. And they'll start to list all these customs and traditions that they're doing that are from the house of Israel. And, if you look 500 years ago, this is the case. 1,000 years ago, they've been there for 2,700 years since the tribes of Israel went to the Far East. So when I'm speaking about, it's very clear for anyone who would look at these people for a split second to say, these people are not only practicing customs and traditions of people of Israel, they're calling themselves on the name of Israel, en masse, not a few educated scholars trying to go around the villages of Afghanistan convincing people who you really are, which maybe you may have to do to certain Israelites. But I'm showing you that that's what I'm seeing.
That was a shot at Brother Quetzi. He basically saying, you have a couple of scholars that's going around trying to teach people who they are or whatever. But that's not the case. The people know who they are. They just, they practice it. They don't have to say who they are. Anyway, we're keeping it moving. I'm shutting up all the time.
Seeing in Afghanistan, that's what we're seeing in Nigeria. It's 40 million there, 25 million there. We're almost at 100 million people between two nations. So I could imagine how many hundreds more would happen according to the groups you're speaking about. But where are they now, literally now, as far as this identity and vis-a-vis the Torah and keeping the laws of the Torah?
Okay, so we have tribes. We have the tribe of Gad. We have the tribe of Dan. We have the Anglo-Evers. We have the Judahites. These are all tribes that are residents through these four countries that I mentioned, from Ghana to Nigeria. We've been keeping the feast of Yahweh. We've been doing the circumcision. We've been, let's take the Passover, for example.
Is this eighth-day circumcision?
8 days circumcision, yes. Before we get to the circumcision,
so you're saying now on the well, I just want to clarify. You're saying on the radio now that all these tribes that you're mentioning outside of the Igbo are practicing eighth-day circumcision en masse by the millions and the millions of people. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. And we started doing this from the 1500s. Before then, before there was an Igbo in Nigeria, because when we were migrating and we got to Nigeria, there was no Igbo.
Mm-hmm. Right. So no, I was just not under the impression that there was millions and millions and millions and millions of people outside of the Igbo doing eighth-day circumcision. So that was something I would look into and verify to see if that's actually happening. But that would be something that looks like what I'm under the impression.
The caucasity. I'm gonna look into it. You see how they be talking? Like, yeah, I gotta check, what you're saying is true or not. You know what I'm saying? Man, you ain't gotta check nothing. Anybody checking for you? I gotta.
Impression of most of these tribes that you're mentioning really have much not to do with each other culture-wise, especially in relation to the Igbo. But if you're telling me that no, across them there are these things that are happening that are going beyond their specific tribes, like eighth-day circumcision, that's something that should be looked into and explored. But like I said, this is news to me, so I'd want to hear more things like this that you'd want to discuss that are across the board amongst the different tribes that you're mentioning, that the Yoruba and the Igbo are both doing. From my perspective, I actually heard stories from some Igbo men that when they were on the slave ships brought to America, they were not, I wouldn't use the word disgusted, but they weren't comfortable being next to other males that weren't circumcised from the Yoruba tribes. And I didn't know the Yoruba tribes were doing 8-day circumcision today. So that would all be news to me.
Yes, so that's what I was saying, that you had mentioned groups, and I'm saying no, we are tribes. And these tribes across these 4 countries do perform these traditions that are in the Torah, even more to the detail than the Igbos, or even the 5 ancient communities that was mentioned. Let's take the Passover for a second. Do you know any supposedly Israelites that paints the doorpost with blood today?
I've heard of it happening in places in certain villages in Afghanistan, but I wouldn't say that I would be able to quickly point out who's slaughtering sheep and painting the doorposts with blood.
Afghanistan? You're not from Afghanistan. Why are you mentioning them? You see how they got to insert themselves? Like, yeah, we don't do it, but I've heard about someone else doing it. You know what I'm saying? And Afghanis, they are, they have the Turk origins also, but they have melanin also. So, he's talking about, yeah, I've heard about Afghanis doing it. Yeah, of course you did. Let's go.
Is this something that the Torah tells us to do?
Sure. I mean, the Torah tells us to do it at that time. I don't know, for continuous generations, how that would work. I mean, there's certain things like animal sacrifices that the Torah told us to do. And then in the destruction of the temple, we'll say in the prophecies, they'll say, now we use our lip service in lieu of the animal sacrifices. So those were specific cases where certain customs and traditions were cut off at the time of the destruction of the temple.
Yes, I don't think that included the Passover feast and what we're supposed to do then, because it was very critical for us getting out of Egypt. The reason I'm asking is because we do it to the T. We were doing this before we met the Europeans. When they met us, they thought it was idol worship. I'm talking about the Arabs in West Africa. So you come to my tribe, the tribe of Gad. Let me explain to you what we do during the Passover feast and the detail.
So your tribe is the tribe of Gad of Africa? Sorry to interrupt. I just want to be very clear when we're speaking.
Yes, the tribe of Gad. We are the Gadites.
All right. Is there like a population like on Wikipedia for this specific tribe?
You see how, he doesn't even know who the people are? And that's what Brother Akwete was explaining to them. Like, you don't even know who we are. So how are you supposed to find us, right? And it's not like they are looking to be found or we looking to be found. You know what I'm saying? Because they are who they are. They just are those people. You know what I'm saying? But Rosenberg over here talking about, who what's their name, who is these people, this, that, and the third, and he's explaining to them, and he's still not understanding who they are, right? But we're gonna keep it moving.
Of humans, is there like a reference to them as an identity?
Yes, you can look them up on Wikipedia. Just type Gas in Ghana, G-A, Ghana. And you see, that's even misleading because we actually span these 4 countries. We're not just in Ghana. You find us from Ghana all the way to Nigeria.
You find us in the Congo. You find us in South Africa. We are all over the place because we kept our migration route and we know who went where. But back to the Passover that I was talking about.
You're saying there's this tribe called Gad today. So I'm looking at Wikipedia now. I'm not seeing. I type in the words Gad, Ghana, Wikipedia. I'm not seeing anything come up right now to say
G-A without the D. G-A without the D. Or try the Gadangbe, because we're made up of Gad and Dan.
Okay,
while you look that up,
sure.
Correct. So while you look that up, I want to focus on the Passover because we're given instructions on what to do during the Passover. We're not supposed to have yeast in the meal, and we keep to that. We're supposed to put the blood on our doorposts, the lintels and the 2 doorposts. We do that.
Wait, just to go back, you say so. For how many days do you guys not eat yeast on the holiday?
For the whole week.
And this is, so you're saying millions and millions and millions of people.
People travel from all over overseas and come back to the family house because that's what the Torah tells us. We should eat it as a family. It's a big feast, and everybody knows about it. In West Africa, the Igbos know about it because there's some Gadites in Igbo land, there's some Gadites in Nigeria that keep this feast also. And this is the Passover feast. We have the Homowo, we have the Mayeli. Mayeli is the Feast of Weeks, Shavuot. We have Mato. Mato is the Feast of Sukkot. We've been keeping these before the Europeans came.
Okay, so listen, so you're saying that, I see that this Gadambe tribe you're speaking about is 2 million people. Are you saying all these 2 million people are doing 8-day circumcision?
All of them. It's a culture. We call it Pojemo. I can tell you what we do during the Pojemo. Actually, let me share this with you. We do it at dawn because we use the dew of the morning to bless the child. Why do we do that? Because when you read the book of Genesis, a mist came from the ground, ascended from the ground, and the Most High took from that, the soil that the mist watered and created Adam. So we mimic that. At dawn, this is when we do, on the 8th day, we do what we call Pojemo. Every Ga child does this. We are known for that. Every single one of them.
Okay, so now just a quick question. So you're saying these Gadambe people, let's say 2 million people, they're all doing, let's make a list, like 8 circumcision. You're saying that's what they're doing on the record. You're saying all these 2 million people are painting their doorposts with blood. Right? That's correct?
And correct. And those who cannot afford the blood, they use what we call akmade, that is red earth. And we paint it. Let me finish.
You're saying, okay, sorry.
Yeah. And then
you're saying that
in the afternoon, wait a second. In the afternoon, there's a gunshot. And everybody is told, don't come out this evening because the angel of death is going to pass. Exactly as you have it in the Torah. My question is, how come we're keeping it to the detail and those that are recognized as Jews don't keep it to the detail? And yet, it wasn't something we learned from the Europeans.
Well, like I said again, let me go back. Let's backtrack just a second before we go. That the Torah that the Jewish quote unquote people today has nothing to do with Europe. It finished off in Europe, but where it started had zero to do with Europe. If anything,
I did not mention Europe.
A lot of it flourished. When you're speaking about prior to Europeans or Europe, you keep referring to Europe as far as the
no. When I say Europeans, no. Let me correct that. When I say Europeans, I'm talking about the Europeans that came on ships to take us as slaves. I'm not mentioning Jews. Before the missionaries came to West Africa, we were keeping these feasts before they came. So the question is, where did we get it from?
Okay, so right. So let's keep digging a little bit. So you've retained. You're saying we'll keep exploring here. We'll hold space a little bit. So you're saying you've retained a lot of customs and traditions. We'll circle back to, but over time there are no Torah scrolls or books of the prophecies or books of the prophets. This is just kind of oral tradition being passed down from exiled communities. Is that what you're suggesting?
Correct, because the Levites were responsible for that. When we're migrating, it was the Levites who were responsible for that.
And from your perspective, just to go back with why I'm saying what I said before, you were saying that why are you keeping things to the T, these customs and laws, better than use the word the Europeans and this is where I came in and said when you say better than Europeans, that the Torah that the Jewish people have today has nothing to do with Europe. It's way before Europe, back to Babylon.
I did not say Europeans. You're mistaken me. When I said Europeans, I was talking about the missionaries that came on slave ships.
Right. Okay. So we'll listen. I guess we'll listen to this call over again. I was under the impression that you said that why are you keeping things to a T in your culture, unlike the European Jews or so. Unless
no, I said you just use unlike those that are. Yeah, I'll give you the. I said those that are recognized as Jews are not keeping it to the T.
Right. So I'll give you the benefit of the doubt that I probably misheard that, and I apologize then. But let's go back, even if that's the case. Let's go back if that is the case. You're saying why are we keeping these laws and customs more precise than the Jews? It would be interesting to say that. Let's say you are now coming back and you're identifying and you're saying this is who we are.
Notice that how he put in that. Let's say that you're coming back. Who said that they ever left? He's saying that they are the real thing. They are the people. They're them. They don't have to come back to anything. They don't have to conform to anything. If anybody needs to conform, it's you. You're not the authority on nothing. Like I said before, you just got here. The fuck? Let's go.
And I'm going to go back to my question. What about the Torah? Where is the Torah coming from? I mean, I look today and I see that the Jewish people, quote unquote, which came from, Yemen, Morocco, Iraq, Syria, some places in Europe, and all these regions, they had a unified transmission of.
Notice how he's talking about areas where Ottoman Turks now occupy. Are you noticing that? As if they are the original people. As if they came first. I swear, man.
Torah of the actual scrolls and their understanding. Outside the Ethiopians, who have their own scripts as well, I don't know one human group alive today, including the Igbo and including the Pashtun, who've maintained a transmission of Torah throughout the generations. Would you say that anyone who's studying a Bible today is thanks to the Torah transmission, because the time of the Septuagint, when it was translated by the sages of Israel from the Torah version that's been passed down to the Bible? So the question is, it's great that you're saying, which if what you're saying is true, that 2 million people are painting blood on their doorposts and doing 8-day circumcisions and doing all these commandments, I would be shocked why an Israeli academic hasn't come in and write an academic paper on these 2 million people yet, which is why I'm a little skeptical of what's really going on, but I'm very open and eager
that is a low blow. No, I don't accept that. Why would an Israeli academic come and write about this? Who said we need Israeli academics to write about our history? Why can it not be the Eves? Wait a second. Why can you not accept an Eve who is writing about our own history? Why do we need Israeli academics to do that for us?
I didn't suggest you needed anything. What I'm saying is
no, but why is using that as a yardstick? Who gave the Israeli?
I'll tell you exactly why.
Them the yardstick to determine who is Hebrew and who is not.
I know, and I didn't say
who determines that.
Who is not. I will tell you. No, I think you're getting a little carried away right now. I'm not speaking about anything.
No, I'm trying to say what you said was offensive. Well, that's why I said offensive. That. Because we don't need your scholars to write about us for people to accept us.
There you go. Okay. We're not looking for you to validate us. You're not the yardstick on validation. You're just making up things as you go, and walking around as if you're an authority on something, and you just got here. Anyway,
We write about ourselves and we tell the world who we are.
That as an offensive comment, and I'll re-explain why it wasn't an offensive comment and why you've misunderstood everything I was just said. When I say you keep saying we don't need, and I'm not saying you guys need anything. I'm not saying Israeli scholars are in charge of who is and who isn't from Israel. What I'm saying is, for the last 50 to 60 years, millions and millions and millions of dollars get poured into philanthropy for institutions in Israel who have educated scholars who are non-biased, non-political, non-biased people who, for the love of their life, have a passion for searching around the whole entire world for people with customs and traditions that date back or that are aligned with the people of Israel. They're not doing that because you need them. They're doing that because they're fascinated and they love it, and it's their passion and it's their calling, and they're not trying to convert anyone. They're not trying to be political. They're just doing it. So I would say by now, statistically, someone would have documented that there's 2 million people doing eighth-day circumcision and painting blood on their doorposts. That is the first time I'm hearing it. The
question rather should be that it means that they're not honest, because if they've done a thorough job of West Africa, they should know this, because this is commonly known. It means that your academics are not being honest; they're being biased.
Well,
because if they do know history, and they've known, like what I just said, let's remove the boundaries. Have they done that? Have they come to talk to the people? Have they followed the migration route? They haven't done that. So when you sit and you try to justify that, okay, because of your Israeli academics, what makes them academics and don't make us academics?
You're again misunderstanding what I'm saying right now. Because you're saying that.
I'm saying that because that was a low blow. I'm telling you, as an academic, I'm telling you as someone who studies the culture, someone who lives the culture, and I'm telling you from the horse's own mouth, you don't need an Israeli academic to confirm anything that I'm saying. You have to come to me, you have to come to us and do your research. So what you should do is you have to go back to them and ask them, why don't they know about us if they're not biased?
Right, so that's what I'm trying to get to, and that's what I'm trying to say is, why don't they know about you? There's got to be a good reason. We got to get to the bottom of it. But I'm looking around
because maybe they're prejudiced. Maybe it's just the Igbos they are interested in. Because if you know about the Igbos, you see, if you know about the Igbos, then you should know about the other tribes, because we predate the Igbos. Like I said, when we were migration,
doesn't mean you're from the same family as them.
No, we are one people. We are all Eves. But some of us were migrating before they were migrating.
All right. I got it. So you're saying, that they're biased, they're prejudiced, they're not looking at, there must be liars, you're saying all these things. But I'm going around the whole internet trying to
saying all these things, and he's talking about the internet. Aquente's telling them like, yo, there were migrations. Even before there was an Igbo, the people were there. So if you know about the Igbo, you should know about everybody. And if your scholars don't know about everybody, it means that they're biased. But we're going to keep it moving.
Find what you're talking about, where these 2 million people, where I could read about the eighth-day circumcision, where I could read about the blood on the doorpost. If this is happening amongst millions and millions of people in their culture, and today in the digital world, this would be something that would be apparent, not hidden.
It is apparent. It's apparent. I'm surprised you don't know about it. That's the problem.
Brothers, I'm going to interrupt you because we may have to have a part 2 to go into that question a little further. But I know that Brother Ron had a question, or he had a comment, and then maybe we can table that specific question and move on to something else. And then if you guys are available and willing, we can come back for part 2 and delve deeper into that, because it's a valid question. Why don't they know? And Rabbi Basil, it's valid what you're saying. We have our own history, and there are a lot of underlying factors at play when it comes to the knowledge and history and culture of melanin people in Africa and in the States. So that question, that discussion probably deserves its own show. But Brother Ron, I know you had something to say.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to say to Harry Rosenberg is that when you look at all the different research and facts that's out there, like when you look at because I study DNA a lot, and DNA, of course, can exonerate somebody from being committed a murder versus somebody that's innocent versus if you're the father of a child and they want to say who if you're really the father, use DNA. So when they did studies on the different people like the Igbos, the Yorubas, the Ga, the Akan people, Akan land and Yoruba land, what they found was this is a study done at the University of Ibadan, which is in Nigeria, the National Human Genome Center at Howard University. These are different geneticists that have done studies on this, and they basically said that the population genetic difference between these groups of people in West Africa is less than 1%. So what that means is that the Yorubas, the Igbos, the Ga, the Akans, the Kikongo, the Cameroon, the Bamileke, and a lot of other West African Bantu tribes are 99.9% basically the same people. They're all the Bantus people. And the word Bantus actually means basically like the people, like group of people. So when you see Baganda, Bakongo, you look at all these different words that have Ba in it, which they used to have back in the day, that basically means that they're the people of this certain group. And so when you see eighth-day circumcision, like if I talk to somebody from the Bamileke tribe and they say, oh, we circumcised, and then you say, well, what day? And then they think to their head, oh, we circumcised on the 8th day. They're not just pulling this out because the Europeans taught them this. And then if you go to East Africa and you say the same thing, and you ask them these questions, and they tell you exactly the same Hebrew traditional customs. Now, this is an interesting thing, and I talked about this in the last show. In the Arabs, they took slaves in East Africa, and they took the slaves all the way to India, to Indonesia, Java, to China, to Japan. The Chinese people documented about all these things about the black slaves they were getting from East Africa that were Bantu people. But of course, when you're reading this text in Chinese, they talk about they call them different names like Zengji, and they talk about different laws like the Dashi law, the Daquan law, and the Zunzun law. You wouldn't know what that is unless you ask a Chinese person that speaks Mandarin or Cantonese what this is. But if you also read their text, you will see that these people are actually Bantu people. Like, for instance, some of the people that were taken from the East African coast was from the Malawi Chua tribe. And the Chua tribe in Malawi, they are Bantu people, and they came from the Congo. And from the Congo, they went to Zambia, and eventually they landed into Malawi, which is near Mozambique and Tanzania. But the Chinese documented in their books that these people that they took, they were black. They didn't eat the meat of pigs, dogs, and donkeys and horses. They circumcised. Every seventh day was a day of rest. They basically they sacrificed, gave drink offerings and cake offerings only to the Queen of Heaven, which is in Jeremiah. They were doing pagan things, and they didn't collect business loans or interest. They didn't. I mean, it's a lot of things that they talk about they did, which basically stems from Hebrew traditions and culture in terms of purification law.
We gonna leave it right there. A, B, another quick history lesson. You know what I mean? Like, we gotta put in this work. Okay. Part 3. It's not a myth. All right. Peace.